We talk about students dropping out of school for mental illness. I know myself, not everybody can afford months on end of waiting to see a doctor, waiting to see the right psychologist. We're talking about lives that are at stake.
I found it difficult to get out of bed in the mornings, and that's when the depression really hit home. For me, it's been chronic depression and anxiety.
If I showed you a graph of the demand over the last 20 years, it's like this. It's just constantly increasing, the demand.
If you look into campus life in Canada today, this is one of the things that you hear about, that there's a mental health crisis. 1 out of every 5 post-secondary students across the country has some kind of mental health problem, be it anxiety or depression. That's from a recent national survey of colleges and universities across Canada. That's right, 1 out of every 5. And the thing is, a lot of them don't get the help they need. So the question I have is, if you're a person with mental health issues, how do you get through school? Meet Greg Owens. Now, Greg got good grades in high school, and at 18, he was accepted into the University of Toronto to study neuroscience.
Going to university, there was certainly excitement. U of T, it's an exciting campus, right downtown Toronto, but a little bit of trepidation as well.
Greg's trepidation was about his mental health. When he got to the University of Toronto, there were a lot of good days, but there were bad days too.
Those days were a lot of sleep. The anxiety was so high that oftentimes by the end of the day, I would be exhausted, emotionally exhausted, mentally exhausted. So I'd end up sleeping for these extended periods of time because I didn't want to deal with the thoughts that I was having, the anxiety I was feeling.
So Greg showed up at the university's counseling center. Now, to their credit, they set him up with a psychologist and they helped him with his obsessive compulsive disorder. But even with regular appointments, his mental health got worse.
For me, it was very based around intrusive thinking, still is, but a lot of times I believe irrational things about myself. I would be convinced, that I was a bad person, that I was a sociopath. So the anxiety was really high up.
Then one day, Greg had a crisis. And what he discovered was that there was a limit to the help he could get at school.
Went up to the front desk and asked, hey, I know I don't have an appointment today, but as you can see, I'm crying, I'm hyperventilating, I'm clearly borderline on a panic attack. Is it possible that I can see my psychologist today? And they basically said, that's not the type of service that we're able to offer here. Your psychologist has other people to see today. If you needed emergency-based service, you're going to have to go to a hospital. So I showed up to the Center for Addiction and Mental Health emergency room. I checked myself in, kind of looked at the folks who were around me. There were 2 or 3 other students. It was such a strange dynamic to see these people who, I might be in a class with one day, and the next day we're sitting in an emergency room together trying to access some type of mental health care.
Because of Greg's condition, he dropped out, and figuring out his mental health became his full-time job. And it wasn't really until a year later that he started to feel better. He discovered what he really wanted to do. He wanted to fix the system he felt let him down. So he found a program in mental health policy at Carleton. He enrolled, packed his bags, and moved to Ottawa to try again. Now, when Greg got to Carleton, something pretty unexpected happened. He found that he got more help from other students with their own mental health issues than he did from the university itself.
So we basically have something going on every day.
Meet the Student Alliance for Mental Health, or SAMH.
I'm not too worried about it because we want to focus on our exact application.
They're meeting to organize activities to support students, and they know what they're talking about.
I struggle around a lot, obviously with my own mental health, and it's more difficult during stressful periods such as the beginning of the year, and during change and like switching from jobs and starting school and being around a lot of people on campus, so it's definitely really stressful. So I don't know, I'm trying to focus on doing self-care things so that I actually survive.
Charissa Ferez is the head of SAMH, and she tells me the group was born out of necessity. At Carleton, like many schools across the country, wait times to see a professional can be so long that groups like this are sometimes the only help students can get.
Having to wait 2 months to see a counselor for your mental health is unacceptable. It's detrimental to student well-being. We can't be putting out the message to students, hey, reach out for help, talk about your mental health, et cetera, and then when students reach out for help, they're being told, well, that's great, but you have to wait.
It can be difficult.
For sure.
That's why the group is so important. Greg will tell you that without SAMH, he probably would have dropped out again.
Helped me heal, and that empowerment of being a group of mentally ill individuals who are now working within our system that we had felt failed us in so many ways, to ensure that the next person that shared our experiences didn't have the system fail them.
Why should students have to rely on each other for their mental health care? Shouldn't universities have a better way to help them? This is the campus of Memorial University in Newfoundland. Ian Farewell is doing a degree in mechanical engineering. And he's battled depression and anxiety all the way through. But the thing is, Ian's experience with mental health care at Memorial has been really good.
When I started taking on more responsibilities as an adult, that's when everything fell apart very quickly. I was irritable. I was very hostile towards people telling me what was wrong with myself. I was like, no, it's not the case, or maybe that is the case, but I don't want to talk about it right now.
Ian almost never left his basement apartment. He cut himself off from the outside world. But when his girlfriend finally made him get help, Ian didn't have to wait. Because when you see someone for your mental health at Memorial, it's like going to see your family doctor.
When you want to see your family doctor, you don't have to wait a long time. When you go to see your family doctor, you get a solution right away. It might not be the right solution. Your family doctor will say, if you're not feeling better in 5 days, come back and see me. We do the same thing.
So this young woman, I saw her yesterday for the first time, and she presented in the walk-in.
Peter Cornish heads this group of counselors at Memorial. They're discussing a student who came to the clinic.
Which start with a simple solution. When people come in on that first visit, we are quite open with them. This may not work, try it out. And if it doesn't work, come back and see me. If we start to get puzzled after they come back and see us, and we're thinking, oh, this might be deeper, then we start doing a more thorough assessment. Versus the old model was you do all the assessment up front. You actually give people no help until you've figured out everything about them. Vivian? And so people may have very simple problems that don't require specialists. They're not mentally ill. And so we make everybody line up, people that are mentally ill and people that aren't mentally ill, to see the specialist, which makes no sense. Inform students when we're ready to see them.
For Peter, making people wait isn't just wrong,
What do you think of that idea?
it's unethical.
Okay. The problem with current services is that professionals don't worry about the people who are waiting. In fact, some of my colleagues say that we only have an ethical responsibility to the people that we're able to see. And what we're able to say is, no, we have an ethical responsibility to all the people that we're not able to see as well. So some critics of our model say, well, you get people in quickly, you don't do as a thorough assessment as we've been trained to do. Isn't that ethically problematic? Isn't there a risk with that? And I say, what's the risk of making people line up for a year? Which is better? So there was a student.
The interest in Peter's approach has been astounding. 36 colleges and universities across the country have been in touch with him. And even the province of Newfoundland is running a pilot project. And the model worked for Ian. Remember, this is a guy who rarely left his apartment.
I come up here really to just get out of the house is the ultimate goal. I just love being in nature. Looking at the ocean makes me feel really like small and kind of puts my problems in perspective. Actually, let's go back here.
These days, Ian's looking forward to graduating. Where do you think you'd be without the program at Memorial?
I would have dropped out of university. I would honestly think I might be on the street, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy I went to the counselor. I wish I had gone sooner, essentially, because I'm a different person now than I was in 2013, and I like that. Wow, that did nothing.
Ian tells me that one of the things they taught him at Memorial is really quite simple.
All right, heat that up to 65.
Like to make sure he spends time with friends.
This time we decided to make a blueberry beer. So we went and picked 3 pounds of blueberries. The social experience of that is almost the reason why I want to do it most of the times. You know, sometimes I lock myself in my room for too long and I need to get out. So I brew beer with Mike.
The demand for mental health services on campuses has never been higher. But it's not because this generation has more mental health issues. It's that awareness campaigns have encouraged people to talk. Now we need to listen. Purdon, CBC News, St. John's.